there, Voyager. This is Igor Alcantara. And on this video, I will show you how you can access AutoML deployments from Python code. And the same logic applies if you want to access from any other external programming language. So let's get to it. Before we discuss Python, let's see what we need to do in the deployment of an AutoML module. So this is a deployment of AutoML module. If you don't understand AutoML or the deployment, I recommend you to study that first before watching this video. And I do have a video where I talk a little bit about it. Is the video where I show the real-time API in AutoML. So I describe a little bit of this. So when you are in an AutoML deployment, you need to have the real-time prediction active, and you activate it once you create a deployment. So when you create a deployment, you need to check the box to enable real-time API. So since we're accessing this externally, you need to copy this URL. So we need this link. So copy this and you save it because we'll need that. That's one piece of information we need. How do I know that? Well, there is the documentation. So if you click the second link, it will open this documentation. And by reading the scroll, that's how I know it. So let's see how we can interpret this. So I have this URL, which is the URL provided there. Basically, that's basic URL, and there is a deployment ID right here. So that link there has everything on it. I know is a post method, and this H here, the header. So I need to pass this in the header, and I need to pass this, an authorization, and then I need to pass an API key. So the way we are authenticating to AutoML outside of the Qlik cloud is through an API key. We get to that point soon. And then the data, this D represents data. So we pass in a JSON where we pass in these two variables, rows and schema. It's pretty much it. And then we have an example of a request here. Pretty simple. So the documentation doesn't tell us much, but I can work with this. This is enough for me. Now, I need this API key. So you need to go to QMC and you need the developer role in order to be able to do that. In the QMC, go to API keys. These are my keys I generated before. And then you go create new. And then in create new, you will select, you type a name for your API key. So these are the keys I have, generate new key. So you need to define a name and you need to define when that key will expire. So pick that one. If you want something that does not expire, then you can pick 27 years. I'm not going to create one because I already have one. Once you click generate, then the QMC, the Qlik Management Console, will give you that key. It's a long string. Copy that and save that because you cannot regenerate the same one. You have to generate a new one if you lose it. Copy that and save in a text file that is secure because with that, other people can access your tenant having the same rights as you have. So keep that in a secure location. So once you've done that, then we're ready for the Python code. Now let's go to the second part of this video. Let's talk about Python. So this is the Python code. I'm not going to type it everything. So the Python code is here. It's pretty straightforward. So I need to import these libraries. If you don't have them pre-installed, then you need to do the pip install on those. If you don't know how to do pip install, then I recommend you to Google it, ChatGPT it, and you'll be able to find it. So I need pandas, request, JSON, OS. Actually, OS no longer needed. Was for something specifically that I am doing, not necessarily that you're going to need for all case, but JSON requests and pandas you definitely need for this. Then I have one function here, and the function is basically to read the API key. So I save the API key in a file. It's not a good practice to have the API key just laying there in your code. So you want to have in a file, in a folder that you only you have access. So this code is basically straightforward. We're using the open function to open the file as read only, and then the file only has that. The file is empty, then I'm saying API file is empty. If the file is not found, I say the file is not found. Otherwise, I'm basically returning that API key. Now let's go to the preparation. First, this is my API key file name. It is in the same directory as my code is, but it could be in a different one. Just then we need to inform the path. Then calling my function, informing the name, and saving the API key in this variable. Then I'm defining here the columns that are required for my AutoML. How do I know it? If I go back to my deployment, then these are the columns required. All right. So I need those columns. Great. Now going back here, I want to read a file that has data, and I want to take those data and use the data to predict against that data. So that's my input for the AutoML. So it's using pandas, like read CSV to read these data. It's the same data set that I use in a previous video for customer churn, the one that I talk about real-time API in AutoML, and I access that in the Qlik UI. And I'm filtering by just those columns that are required columns. So if you want to read the whole data set, you're free to do it, but I'm doing something more specific to this. All right, there's like a try except here, some erroring, and then I'll display that. So let's go ahead and let's execute these blocks because I want to show you what we are doing. There we go, and then I'm running this. There we go, and that's my data frame. So I have those columns, and I have a lot of rows, over 7,000 rows that I want to submit it. So I want a bit larger data set so we can see how fast this actually runs. Now let's run the predictions. So I'm defining the JSON. So this is my schema. And basically, I'll do a for loop in the required column. So I'm passing each one of the columns as part of the JSON. So that will do that for me automatically. One line of code. That's one of the reasons I love Python. And then these are the rows. Basically, I'm converting all of the rows in my data frame to a list. So basically, the data frame .values.to function to list, and then that converts to the rows. And then that's my JSON. Rows equals rows, schema equals schema. Case equals is a JSON and is a column instead of equal sign. All right. Then that's the URL we just saw there. Those are the headers we saw. So application JSON, authorization, and then the API key, just like we saw in documentation. That's why the documentation helped me to perform this task. Now, that's the magic. That's where the access to AutoML deployment happens. So I'm using request.post. How do I know it's post? In the documentation, it told me is post. And then I pass the URL, the headers, and the data. How do I know this is how I need to pass? Well, it says in the documentation. That's why it's important to read the current documentation. It's a post. These are the two headers. This is the data. So that's how I know this is how I have to do it. And even with this very simple documentation, doesn't give me more details, I was able to do it just because I know how to read it. So we do that. And then the response, I'll get it using this raise for status. So I'll try that, and then I'll get a response. Now, we might get some errors. Maybe my data is corrupt. Maybe something happens. Maybe I'm missing a column. Something happens. I might have an error. So I'm only continue this if my status is succeed. How do I know the status code succeed? is in the documentation. So it says 200 here, but it could be 200 or 201. So then in that case, most case scenarios, it's 201. So then that's how I check. If the response status code is 200 or 201, then I'll proceed. So let's go ahead and run the rest of this. And let's run this. And while it's running, let me keep explaining. So this, if this is correct, then I'm getting the JSON from the response object, and I'm saving in the predictions object. And that's the prediction option I'm printing right here. So that's an ID, that's the prediction, the probabilities of yes and no, and this is an error. There's no error, so no, this is good. So it keeps going. The 7,000 rows is pretty big. You see this scroll bar right here. All right, now I want to extract that and save in a because this is I like JSON, but it's kind of hard to read. Let me convert to a table format. So I'm saving in the schema object the schema from the result, where I get it back, because I had the schema before and the rows for the input. Now I'm getting the schema and rows from the output, the results with the prediction. Getting the name of the columns, just like I did it before. It's very similar. If I want to print this, these are the column names. So these are my output. So I get this row index, the prediction, the probability. It's a binary prediction, the probability of each class, and not predicted reason. That means like what is the error? If there's no, that means it was predicted. So then I'm converting that to a data frame using this function, pandas pd.dataframe, and then I pass the rows and the columns. That's it. And then I can display. There we go. I have my predictions for every single row running in Python. Great. Now, if you like this, how about we go to the third part of this video? Inputting the parameters manually instead of reading a lot of rows from the data set, because then I can do like an interface, like a web page, and then user can enter something, hit a button, and get a prediction real time outside of Qlik. So let me put some data. Very simple one. We can get this from let's say a web page, but I'm doing something simple, so the video is not too long. These are my data: tenure 12, contract month to month. So this is the data I'm inputting for the prediction. So let me run that. And then this is exactly the code that we saw before. But instead of inputting the rows from that CSV file, I'm inputting the rows from this input data. So that's the input data right here instead of the data frame. Everything else, it's absolutely the same. So I'm running this, and then I'm running that response, and then let's see the result. There we go. It's only one row. So you get the prediction. Prediction churn yes, with the probability of 54%. No error. That's great. So that ends today's video. I hope you like it. Let me know if you wanna have access to the code. We might find a way to share with you. But let's agree on something here. If this video gets enough likes, then we'll share this code. All right. So I hope you like this, and comment if you like, share if you like. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to datavoyagers.net, where you can watch our videos and also read our articles, and send us suggestions for new videos, new content. Hope you see you next time. Thank you.